morning, it's Brian. It's the Art of Startup War. We are, as always, bringing on a phenomenal entrepreneur, breaking through with technology and innovation, which is absolutely cutting edge and no more so than the one we have here. Again, this is a company that we have invested in. So when I am speaking to all of you fellow investors who are listening or watching this podcast, I'm speaking to folks from the perspective of, we looked at this company, we liked this company, we diligenced this company, we invested in this company, and we've worked with this company since. So we have a lot of perspective. Now, I want to share as much of that as I can over this 30 minutes through having just a wonderful Q&A back and forth to give you as much information as you can. And then hopefully that will give you the information to then start breaking into dialogue yourself. That's the plan. As always, I am not soliciting anybody. I'm not saying you should do stuff. I'm just saying we at Expert Dojo are very, very happy that we invested in. Okay, now let's begin. Lucas from Hololink, who I have spoken to and worked with many, many times before. I love what Lucas is building. It is the future of everything, and you're all going to get a little bit of a taste of it today. Lucas, welcome, buddy.
Thanks. Excited to be here.
So we are going to talk about some of the most exciting visual aspects of technology that is coming to the market. Like, you are on the absolute cutting edge. And I still remember when you and I had our first conversation and John brought me in and we were digging into it, and I'm like, God, I love what's being built here. I love how the world has changed. I love how augmented reality is coming in, and we're going to look at an entirely different perspective from everything we've seen before. It is time. But before we dig into everything that you're building and you're going to build going forward, can you take us right back to the start? Take us back to the story. Take us back to like a little bit about yourself and the genesis of the idea of Hololink. Like, where did it come from?
Yeah, sure. So actually, the story of Hololink starts all the way back in 2017, and I would say it actually the journey towards where I am today, really started on what I would say was probably one of the worst days in my life. So back in 2017, I was living the teenage dream of working in the music industry. I was a drummer, playing hundreds of shows. I was teaching others to play. I was organizing concerts and festivals, and really enjoying being in the music industry. And I was also tour managing for one of the biggest Danish pop artists. But then on one day, and this happened on the same day, I got fired both as a tour manager and as a drum teacher. So that was like my main two gigs. And I was already starting to feel that the music industry was really exciting, and especially because what I really like to do is create experiences for people. Create experiences that they remember and that transforms them in any way, really. But I was starting to feel that the music industry was probably not going to be a place where I could make a living. So it's not like I'm particularly religious or anything, but if there's anything that could give you a sign from above, getting fired from both your jobs at the same day is probably it.
Yeah, it's time to change, and probably a very wise change considering what you went into. So what went through your mind, and where were you going?
Yes, so obviously that was a very shitty day. So the day that I got fired, but after that I sort of like took my life up for evaluation and was like, I wanted to do something different and go somewhere where I was creating something new, creating new possibilities. Because at the time I was playing music and mostly playing jazz, and that's all about playing songs from the 50s or 60s. So that was probably the least futuristic and innovative thing I've done. So sort of like by coincidence, it was actually my teacher at the time at university who introduced me to a guy who was organizing a big conference about virtual reality and augmented reality. And so my thinking was at that time I had organized a lot of like festivals and concerts, and I was like, well, a conference is just one guy on stage with a microphone instead of a full band and lights, and smoke, and all of that. So that sounded very easy, almost relaxing to do. But really, so I took that job and started organizing conferences, hackathons, meetups, really started to get into this community of people who were really excited about the next mass medium. Like, we went from like computers to laptops to smartphones, but then nothing has really happened since the smartphone. So the community that I got into was all about the next big thing. So I got into virtual reality, which is really exciting. But at the end of the day, I don't want to be the guy who straps a screen to people's faces with like an elastic band and puts them into a metaverse or whatever they're gonna call it. The real world is pretty great. Yeah. So let's use that at least as a backdrop, right?
Yeah, I love that.
So during my time organizing this conference, I met so many cool like startups and people working all across the tech industry and VR and AR. But after doing that for 2 years, I wanted to not just be a facilitator, but I wanted to be a player. I wanted to do something myself. And at that time, I knew a lot about VR and had done a couple of projects within VR, but augmented reality was really where I could see the big potential, because we all have a smartphone. And that is, so everyone has the device, and that device is increasingly capable of essentially facilitating these experiences. So I decided I wanted to get into to do something within augmented reality. And at first I thought, well, how hard can it be to create augmented reality yourself? I had some experience with computers. I had produced a lot of music on computers. So I think how hard can it be? And I downloaded Unity, which is like a game engine, and started creating my first project in there. And just as soon as I got into a terminal window where I just had like that clicker that is just waiting for code to be written, I realized this is not something I can do myself. And so I started looking for platforms for people like me, like creative people, not developers. I started looking for platforms that could enable me to create augmented reality experiences, but there weren't really any out there. So I decided, why not build one myself or create a team that could do that? So I've at the next conference I organized, I found the geekiest guy at the conference, the guy with the ponytail and the Guns N' Roses t-shirt and all of that, because that's how you know a good developer, right? And it turns out that he had the same vision for augmented reality and had done the same analysis that I had. So when we first met in 2017, he was the only guy at the conference who was talking about augmented reality in the web browser. Everyone else was excited about like Pokemon Go and the IKEA app and all of that, but Dennis was like, no, it needs to be in the browser, because imagine if every video on YouTube was its own app that you had to download. Like that's scalable, and that's never gonna work. So it needs to be in the browser for it to be accessible. And in 2017, everyone thought he was crazy, but then the year after, he came back and he actually had a shitty but a working prototype of a platform where you could insert a 3D model and you could move it around, and then you could see that 3D model on the phone via a web browser. And that was the moment I realized, shit, I gotta do this.
Yeah. And then, so let's stop it there. So you, right at this stage, you realize there's a great opportunity in the world. You've realized that augmented reality, and I actually really like your phrase of, hey, we don't need to go into other worlds. The world we live in is pretty great. All we have to do is add some color to it and add some fun into it and take the entertainment into our world rather than hiding ourselves in other worlds that are not even, have no basis on reality whatsoever. So I love that. And everybody who's been around augmented reality for years, the conversation has been very similar to the artificial intelligence conversation, whereby artificial intelligence have been words that have been used for like 20 years, but in reality, they haven't really been a thing. They've been an Excel spreadsheet that people just use for everything. It's only really in the last 3 months that artificial intelligence has started to take a new level of its own. And so when you started to get into augmented reality, you were looking at it from a very similar perspective, which is augmented reality is this beautiful thing that everybody wants to exist, but the technology has to catch up, right?
Yeah.
And actually, our ability to engage with the technology has to catch up. So I want to look at like the traction that you started to build as you went past that moment. But before I do, talk to me about the team that you had, and talk to me about the moment that you realized that you had a venture backable company.
Yeah. So I feel like I've known from day one that this was a venture backable company, because at the end of the day, it's a SaaS platform that you could, it really democratizes a medium, augmented reality that, as you said, has been talked about for many years. Like I think some of the first augmented reality I saw was like the visor in Top Gun, with like Tom Cruise and all of that, like with the glasses. And then when the iPhone came around and smartphones increasingly, you like every year there was maybe like 2 or 3 brands who would create an augmented reality campaign, and a lot of people would talk about it, but it would also just be like, it would just be that. So everyone could see that augmented reality was performing really well, because fundamentally, and that's where I think the connect is to my background. Fundamentally, augmented reality is experience at scale.
Right.
So augmented reality had been around for a long time, and I could really quickly see that what was really needed in order to unleash the potential was fundamentally 2 things. It needed to be easier to create the AR experiences, and it needed to be easier to distribute them. So a platform and no-code tool for creating the experiences, and then it needed to be web-based, so anyone could access it on any smartphone at any given time.
Yeah. And so did you, and then at that moment, you realized you needed to raise money, right?
Yeah, I would say in 2019, we the first year was just me and Dennis, like bootstrapped, and I really wanted to get to know the market and the possibilities and the need, like for these kinds of solutions. Who has the need the most, and what's their specific problem? Sometimes what can happen is people can create a startup and raise money and start writing code before they have even figured out what the problem is. And that was really important for me not to do that. So me and Dennis actually spent the first year on purpose, just working part-time. Dennis creating prototypes, ideas, MVPs, and me just running around getting meetings across like so many different industries. Like I remember we did a pilot with SAP in Copenhagen, like all the way from there to we worked with some of the people from the local hospitals around. Should we do something in wayfinding? Should it be enterprise? Should it be education, museums, architecture? Like that, and that's really the beauty of what we're doing here, because we are fundamentally creating the world's next mass medium. So you could say, which industry is going to need video, for example, before that existed? Well, that's every industry. And it's the same with augmented reality. But we needed to narrow it down. And after a year, we realized that the biggest need for augmented reality really is in marketing, because what you're trying to do with marketing fundamentally is engaging people. And that was what I had done before with events, but events is really not scalable. Even though it's very effective. So what I found in augmented reality is that's one of the only mediums or platforms where you can create experience at scale, and you don't have to strap people into a headset or rent a big conference space that's going to cost you millions, or set up a festival or anything else. You can essentially take the brand experience and make it pop up around your audience instantly. So it's like having a pop-up store that emerges like instantly right in front of your audience whenever they need it through the browser on the smartphone.
Fantastic. And how close are we to that? And then talk to me about the development that you've gone through with the product to get it to that place. Because I think, look, everybody listening here can very easily imagine a world where advertising, God forbid it's so boring, and can imagine a world where advertising can become experiential and fun, right? Everybody here, I doubt if there's a single person listening that wasn't touched by Pokemon Go. And even less than this, I doubt if there's anybody who's listening who didn't feel that Pokemon Go was an exceptional idea, really well executed. Maybe they got tired of it at the end because it was such an exceptional idea and so well executed, but it touched everybody. So why haven't we seen more Pokemon Go's? What's happening in the market now for augmented reality? And how do you see this developing through? Because you've made a play. And also, I'll also say as well, I don't think there's a single person listening to this who isn't going to believe that what you are developing and building is the future. The most important part, I believe, is when is it the future, right? How does it fit in? And then what does that development look like going forward?
Yeah, that's a big question. But I think fundamentally, the impact that augmented reality has on marketing is essentially making marketing memorable. Like the average American, like you see between 4,000 and 10,000 ads every single day.
Wow.
Now, think about how many of those do you actually remember? Can you name even one ad that you've seen today?
No.
Isn't that crazy scary?
Yeah, like genuinely no. And it's not like it's pretty early, but I've been probably on 20 or 30 separate internet pages. So I'm sure I was hit with at least 100 to 300 ads. And I can't remember a single one.
Yeah. And like every single day, American companies are spending $1 billion every day to target people with their ads to get them to remember their product next time they're in the supermarket, or next time they're in the market for a new CRM system, or the next time a machine breaks in the factory or whatever. $1 billion every single day, and you can't remember a single ad that you've seen. Isn't that crazy? Like,
Yeah.
it's so many billions of dollars just going down the drain. And it's essentially because digital advertising at the moment primarily is just shouting at people. Like, the idea seems to be you have a message about your product that you want to present to people, and then if you can just get that message in front of them enough times throughout the day, then they're probably gonna remember it and eventually buy it. That's a
Agreed.
crazy way of going about your marketing budget.
Yeah.
So
So how do we change? Well, what does this new world look like, and how has Hololink evolved since those early days of 2019 as the
mm,
products got built to now be in a place whereby the market's ready for Hololink? Hololink is ready for the market. Talk us
yeah,
through what it looks like.
yeah. So well, since 2019 and throughout 2020, where we raised our first funding round from TechStars and Greg Moga, a business angel, we've spent the vast majority of our time and money on building the product and the technology, because we know that's essentially the foundation of succeeding with this bet. And now we have 5 people team based out of Copenhagen, Denmark. So it's not like we have spent like millions and millions of dollars.
Mhm.
So we are very small and very nimble team, but still we have one of the most powerful and most intuitive platforms for creating augmented reality experiences in the world. Like, one of our competitors is a UK-based company who's called Saba, and they've been around for 12 years. There are 70 people, and people are choosing our platform over theirs.
Wow.
That's kind of crazy for a 5 people team in Copenhagen.
Good crazy.
Yeah, good crazy, right? So and I remember a week or two ago, I was on a call with a new customer who had tried out like all the platforms in the market, and when he saw our platform, and because one thing that we focused a lot on in our platform is the ability to create interactive experiences. A lot of the platforms is just essentially a way to put a 3D model in the real world, like, the IKEA example with the couch, which is cool, but you're not going to engage anyone by just showing a product.
No.
It's like just taking your product and put it in front of them. You need to tell a story, and in order to do that, people need to interact with it. Like, there's a reason why gaming is now bigger than Hollywood.
Yeah.
People want to interact with things. They don't want to just consume. So essentially, today, HoloLink is one of the best platforms on the markets. It's the most scalable way for agencies and marketing departments to create AI experiences, because they don't have to start from scratch every time like they would do with like Unity or 8-Wall or something like that. And it's very cost effective. We just launched a new plan, which is, we call it the Unlimited plan. And that's essentially because that's what it is. So it's the only plan, the only offering in the market where agencies and marketing departments can create unlimited projects, get unlimited views for only $1,500 per month.
Wow.
So that means finally there's a way for brands to truly adopt augmented reality in their marketing mix. So the impact that we want to do moving forward, and that we're already having now, is essentially we are going to make marketing experiential.
Love it.
And that makes it memorable. People remember your product, your messaging, your service, whatever, because they have interacted with it. They have actually experienced it. They have essentially been in a personalized pop-up store through the browser on their phone. And that is going to make any digital marketing setup just so much more effective.
Huge.
And yeah.
Huge. And then okay. So first of all, I want to finish in a minute or two with the biggest question of all, which is like we fast forward. Normally I say 10 years in the future, but I want to say 5 years with you because I feel like you're on the cusp of a monster market breakthrough. I feel like the time is right for augmented reality, that the technology is caught up, the people are caught up, the users of the internet are now doing things they wanted. Like the gamers have already gone through Fortnite. They already understand like the benefits. Like the other games that are coming through are all trying to take the online games to the real world. Like these two worlds are starting to marry on like so many different levels. And even as I start to see, like, even with the recession that's technically upon us right now, we look at some of the industries that are defiant to the recession, and we look at music, and then we say, how does music actually take augmented reality and go back to a place that it flirted with for a little while, but then hasn't come back to in a very big way since? So I think there's loads of options. So anyway, the last question, when we get to it, is going to be 5 years in the future, interview with Bloomberg. They're talking to you about this incredible exit that you had. They're talking to you about what you sold the business for. They're talking about why you sold it to this person or why you IPO'd. They're talking to you about how you built your revenue, where your successes were, what you learned. I want like a 2-minute excerpt of what that interview is going to say, right? So, but before we get there, let's do a few things first. Number one, let's make sure everybody's got your email, because I want to make sure that investors, especially investors who understand this space, can contact you directly.
Yeah. So they can reach out at Lucas with a C at Hololink, holo like hologram, link like a web link. That's essentially what we do. .io. So Lucas at hololink.io. And regarding that, I also wanted to say, I don't know when this podcast is going to air, but we are just about to go live with a crowdfunding campaign through WeFunder. So that means not only the VCs and the business angels will be able to invest in our upcoming round, but also any like retail investor who might be sitting at home and who's tired of seeing so many ads that just screams at them and wants to live in a world where going online is about experiencing and interacting with things instead of just ads that's just screaming the same message at you over and over.
Wonderful. We're huge fans of WeFunder. Expert Dojo have raised money on WeFunder back in the day. Very successful.
Oh, nice.
And we love the fact that we brought in the retail crowd to actually be a part of it, because they're the users.
Yeah.
Have your fans as the people who are investing in you, and you'll never look back. So I love that. And this would be airing towards the end of April. So it'll be very good for timing. And so let's then move to, like, before we get to that final question, let's just move to how you're going to compete. If you like compare yourself to folks that are in the same space, because there are some other brilliant people around the virtual reality space, the augmented reality space, the experiential space, the advertising space. Like, talk to me about how you see those competitors and how you see your technology as having a leading edge against them.
Yes, I would say, just to give people an idea about what this market really is. I would say there are 3 categories of players in this market. There's obviously the big tech companies, Snapchat, Instagram, Meta, TikTok, all of that, where you can try out the fun filters with the cat ears or whatever. And so their place in this space is essentially, if you as a brand wants to create an augmented reality experience, you can do it exclusively for each of the platforms. So Meta has one tool that's called Spark AR, where you can create an AR experience, oftentimes a filter, and it's extremely limited what you can do in terms of linking to your brand and to more information. So it's essentially just a window to show your product. It is not something that you can really use for conversions. And also, you have to create the same AI experience at least 3 times for Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, and those are completely different editors and completely different workflows. So that's the big tech. And then there's also Adobe, who also has an AI platform, but they're very focused on essentially, if you create an AI experience with Adobe, the receiver of that experience needs to open the Adobe app. So that means it's inside the App Store. And we all know all the limitations of getting things in the App Store. Then there's, I would say, a lot of the Coca-Cola kind of AI experiences, the one-offs with the huge crazy budgets, they are oftentimes mostly being done with a platform called Eighth Wall, but Eighth Wall has essentially only solved the part of being able to track the world around you. Everything else you need to do yourself. So you need to code that more or less from scratch, or at least have some really good developers. So it's really difficult to create those, and it's also crazy expensive. And then there's the third part of the market is where we are, which is the market for tools that doesn't require coding and therefore can be used by a lot more people. And in our part of the market, there's us, and then there's Zappa and Blipper from the UK, and then there's a couple of smaller ones. And where we really differentiate is we have one of the best looking and most intuitive interfaces in the market. We have focused a lot on interactivity, so it's not just placing a 3D model on your face or whatever, but it's actually truly interactive experiences where you can learn about the product and explore the product or whatever it is instead of just seeing it. And then there's the pricing part of it. So as I said, we are the only platform who has an unlimited plan. And the reason why we're able to offer that is because we have built our cloud setup and infrastructure better than the other ones. So that means we have access to the absolutely lowest possible costs. We even now, where we have thousands of users all across the world, we barely pay anything in cloud costs. So that's why we are able to confidently offer our customers that kind of service.
I love it. And in many ways, look, if everybody's thinking of this, if I'm going to build a website, 50 years ago, I would have built a website through a custom place. They would have charged me $500,000 to get it done. Today, I'm going to go on Squarespace or Shopify, and I'm going to build a great website. And that website is going to be intuitive. It's going to interact with the customer, and it's going to allow me to build all of the financial interaction that I need on that website. And so what you're doing is you're really democratizing the entire access to augmented reality for everybody to be able to use, because agencies are not going to go through the custom builds of that equivalent to $500,000 website when they can just do something on your platform as well. Okay, so takes us to the last question. 5 years in the future, you're looking back, you built this thing out, you brought in more great investors, you built up the revenue, you built up the product. Talk us about how you did it, what it became, and what your exit scenario looked like.
Yeah, this is a good visualization exercise, I think. So in that interview, what I would probably say is the possibility that me and my team saw in the market already in 2019 was essentially websites are going to change. Ever since the start of the internet, a website has been some text, images later on videos as well, and then nothing really happened. So for 20 years, even more. The web has just been like flat text, images, maybe a video. It's essentially like reading a flyer. That it's not an experience. It's not something you can interact with. And you just mentioned like Squarespace, Webflow, Shopify, all of those great websites that makes it not websites, all of those great platforms that makes it really easy to build an ordinary old school website.
Absolutely.
And that kind of website is really going to be old school in 5 years. So what we saw in the market is there was a need for a platform that allowed creatives to express themselves through more than just a flyer on the internet. And so that's the potential that we saw, and that's what we've built the platform to do, and that we scaled. We started by targeting the agencies, because that was a great way to get into the different marketing departments. And then when we had the agencies, we went into the marketing departments, so they could also create it themselves. And then once we had pretty much every marketing department using our platform for creating augmented reality websites and experiences, which, as we all know, eventually became really the only kind of websites, because why would you have a website that's just a flyer? And especially, I think in 5 years, we're probably not going to be running around with AR glasses, but we all know that all of the smartphone companies like Samsung and Apple, they're working on the next thing. And it's obvious that they started to be in our pockets, then they came on our wrists and in our ears, and then where's it moved from there? Into the eyes. So that's obviously where it's all going, and that's just going to make augmented reality and what we're doing even more relevant. So in 5 years, have we done an exit? Maybe to one of the bigger players, like, I don't know. It could be like Google or Adobe or even Canva, some of these like digital creation tools and platforms that would just allow us to accelerate our vision of making the web more experiential, more immersive, and more interactive. So I think that's where we're going.
Beautiful. No better way to finish the web. And you created a beautiful visualization then, because actually, I don't think there's a single person listening here who doesn't think, yeah, websites haven't changed. Like, websites are kind of like black and white TV. It hasn't really we're still it hasn't changed in like 30 years. Literally, the website today is no different from the website 30 years ago. But like, everything else has changed. The world has become more experiential. Like, we deserve better. So I love where you're going to with this. This is not some far-fetched, in 20, 30 years time, the world will change. This is a guaranteed reality. Everything is going to become more immersive, and more immersive is just going to be how we interact with it. So where did we want to put our money onto? We wanted to put our money onto the platform that is more easily going to be able to get consumers and businesses by democratizing it in a way that everybody can afford it. So I love it. Lucas, absolutely brilliant that we've invested in you. Love the journey, love your grit, love your determination, love how you keep on evolving and making the product better and better and better, so that as this mass adoption comes on, you're not just going to be in the line to get it, you're going to be front of the line to get it. So thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Brian. It's been a pleasure.